Welcome back to the Shut the Hell Up and Sell podcast. My name is Ronell Richards. I am your host. I'm going to take you on a journey of sales, evangelism, and I'm thinking of something really cool to say because I've got such a cool guest. I got a guy on here that makes me envious of the boulders on top of his shoulders, man. Every time I see this dude, I'm like, I need to go do some more push-ups. I need to do some push-ups and I need to do some curls. So as soon as we finish this, I'm headed directly to the gym because I am now motivated because I have not only an amazing seller, but a great guy and a physical specimen, Mr. Ken Lundin. What's happening, Ken?
I don't know. Is this a fitness show or is this something about selling? I don't know.
We might turn it into. If you guys are only.
All right, I'm going to go do some deadlifts and squats after this too. So that's all cool.
Well, you live somewhat close to me, so I might head over there. Actually, I'm just kidding. I'm not, because I can't hang with this guy when it comes to that. Ken, welcome, my friend. It is so good to see you. It's always great to see you.
Oh yeah, you and I getting to rap is always a lot of fun, insightful. And I always learn something. So,
I like that. I think that for me, obviously, this podcast is the companion podcast for the book, Shut the Hell Up and Sell. Go get your copy. But, the coolest thing about this podcast for me is to just get to sit and chop it up with my community, man. Great sales leaders, hear their stories and get inspired and motivated. So and you are definitely at the top of that list, my friend. So I'm very excited to have this conversation. As we get it started, if you could please, and I see you got he's on brand, he's got the RevHeat shirt. If you could please let our audience know who you are and what you do.
Perfect. Yeah. So obviously Ken Lundin, I'm the founder of a sales consulting and training company called RevHeat. I've created something called the Sales Alpha Roadmap, which works for mid-market companies. Man, it just ultimately lets you build a world-class sales force in under 12 months that chops up market share and grows sales fast. So we're doing that, and we're having a lot of fun working with clients on it.
Short and sweet. I love it. Make an impact. All right, so let's go back. Let's hop in the time machine. Okay, I want you to sit next to me. We got Doc Brown. We got that dog. I remember what the dog's name was. I don't know. This is 80s reference. Sorry, guys. I'm an 80s kid. All right, you're gonna hop in the time machine with me. When did you start in this game? We are all about evangelizing for sales, right? And so the sales profession, I want people to be proud of what we do. And it starts with acknowledging how many years we got in the game. I want to clap it out. I want to know how long you've been in the game. When did you start, Ken?
I think it's funny because I think when we think about sales, too often people are thinking about how they were thrown into it after college or, there's something, but, if you're either selling or being sold at one point in your life, I think. So if you take it all the way back, I can tell you the most meaningful sales job that I ever had was when I was a kid, and my parents got divorced when I was in 8th grade. And so for the couple of years before that, my dad was kind of gone, absentee father, he's in the military. So, God bless him for that. But wasn't around. And I was an all-star baseball player, and, baseball was my life. And that was back in the day when you could chop it up with your buddies and go grab a mitt. And so for that 2 years prior to that divorce, probably the most important thing I had to do is sell my dad on why it was important to come see me play, why it was important to go throw the ball in the backyard. So, you think about that, whatever that was 82. So does that mean I've been selling for 40 years? Maybe officially 25, but damn, I just got old fast. I do need to go to the gym and work that off.
Well, I think a lot of people can identify with you in the sense of we kind of were able to identify that there was either a passion or a gift for sales at an early age, right? Like with you looking back, you're like, man, when I was a kid, hey, I was selling my pops, trying to get them to come to the games. Now, tell me when you first took your first check. When did you start getting paid to sell?
3 months after I graduated from college. If you don't include the paper route, right? You don't include some of those
No
things where
paper routes.
every house you picked up, you made an extra buck, right?
You were better than
So I
me.
took a job right out of college. Here was the awesome thing. If anyone was given this offer today, they would lose their minds, and this company would never hire anybody, even though they're a multi-billion-dollar company. And so I took a job out of college, and here were the terms. The terms are, okay, Ken, we're going to give you $24,000 in salary.
Mm-hmm.
And here's what's awesome. You can keep that for 3 months. And then for the next 12 months after that, we're going to reduce your salary by $2,000 a month. And you get to decide when you've started making enough commissions that you want totally off salary, and we'll bump your commission up by, 3x.
Yeah.
And so it was, so 6 months in, 3 months of training and taking tests and stuff. And then my third full production month, I made $11,000, and I had to make the decision. Is this going to keep going?
Yeah.
Do I want to keep the salary, or do I want to go 100% commission based? And so I went 100% commission based 6 months out of college, and did that for the next 6 years.
Nice. So you went straight into the deep end, man. That's 100% commission job with the bridge. That's essentially what they're giving you. So you had a 3-month bridge, and then they were decreasing that every month. That my friend, takes a lot of courage, right? Like, and I've hired a lot of people 100% commission, and it's not the easiest thing to do because so many people are afraid to take that plunge. Were you just like, just young, you're like, whatever? Was that something you're afraid of?
It's everything I'd prepared for.
Yeah.
Life's certainly, you and I have done it, and they can go listen to you and I on our other recordings and hear about some of the trials and tribulations. But it's all I'd prepared for. I prepared for that moment. That was how I graduated school. I didn't care what the degree in. It was just degree mattered to get into the world and get into the profession and to then do my wares. So, was it goofy? Yeah. But did it teach me how to take responsibility for my own success and not put it off on others? I'd say I carry that with me still today.
Nice. And what year was that?
1995, 96.
95, because we want to put years as the things around here. So you are celebrating, checking my math, was that 27 years in the game. You are officially.
I only look 27. How is that possible?
I don't know how it does either. I don't know, man. I don't know. First of all, what is it that you're drinking? What is your supplement routine? You need to share it with all the rest of us, because you're doing something right, my friend. Or maybe it's just a sales success. Is that what it is? Success in sales?
Yeah.
That keeps
sales
you looking
helps.
Great.
Yeah. Sales helps. But I'll tell you what, the ups and downs. Like, let's talk, man, shut the hell up and sell, right? What's that all about? The idea is it takes a lot of wherewithal, discipline, and brain power to stay on target. And, for me, just, the quick aside is the fitness, and you and I have spoken about this before, the bodybuilding. I'm 51 years old. And at 49, because I've had some injuries since, but at 49, I hit the biggest, most strongest lifts I've ever hit. And so I think what I'm really trying to say about that is it's the discipline to be necessary. It's to take the vitamins, do the things, do the work, and to have the goals. It's like when you're doing what I do, and this translates into how we work in sales, is you're either bulking and trying to get bigger, or you're cutting and trying to get thinner, because you can't add muscle while trying to decrease fat in a calorie deficit. Think about sales. So often we're trying to do multiple things, and we're forgetting that each thing has to have a specific set of routines that go with it that are different than another. If you want to go build a pipeline of business, that's very different than trying to cultivate an existing account. And somehow in sales, that's where I think some of the discipline gets missed, is because people aren't thinking about how things are different or require different tactics, strategies, and discipline. So fitness for me and bodybuilding for me really bleeds into all the things that you need to do, and is a great way, a great kind of analogy or a great way to look at how to go about being successful in other parts of your life.
I couldn't agree more with that, my friend. Couldn't agree anymore. All right. So, you have been in this game for 27 years. I'm trying to catch you. I'm not there yet, but I'm trying to catch you. And, in my journey, and I know you can identify with this, there have been some folks along the way that have been super impactful. In fact, I write about this in the book. There are a couple examples that I share in the book. Some of the folks that made impact were, massive contributors, right? Like maybe they were the marquee stars, right? But then others were like, supporting actors, but maybe had a major impact, at least for me. And I share one of those stories in the book. So I would like to know, Ken, from you, share with us one of, not necessarily the major star that everyone knows, but that supporting actor, that unsung hero that made an impact in your career. Let's shout them out. Give me one of those folks, please.
Yeah, I can. And I want the quick aside though, I'm gonna give a plug for your book. Man, you guys got to go look at this. The idea of what Ronell tells this story about selling a watch, but not selling a watch to the dude who's really rich. You got pick up the book for, if nothing else, for this story, man. I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if you go back, it's funny because a lot of the big influencers in my life that have had an impact on who I am, not only as an individual, but from a standpoint of my sales and sales management and consulting career, barely know that they had it because it was so long ago, and it took getting some distance to really get perspective, to understand how crucial and critical some of those things were that were just kind of something said in the middle of a conversation, right? They weren't trying to give you life advice. They were just talking. And so I have a good friend of mine who's actually worked for me twice. So he worked for me back between 2002 and 2006, and then again about 4 years ago for a couple years. And his name is Brad Randolph. And so Brad's out of Phoenix, just a class dude, good quality dude, little older than me. No, Brad, when you listen to this, buddy, you're a lot older than me, and don't you forget it. But so Brad and I, we had this great relationship when he was working for me back in that middle 2000s. And so every now and then we'd take off, we'd go get lunch. And we go get lunch at this place, best burger on the planet, dive bar, just outside of Cave Creek, Arizona. And he and I are talking, and you're talking through those things about how do you balance company versus family versus client? How do you, like, this interweaving of how do you do that?
Yeah.
And so, Brad says to me at one point, we're just kind of talking about those priorities. And he says, Ken, here's the deal. I work for Brad, Amy, Paige, and Taylor first. And I work for the house second. And at the time it was like, okay, cool. Yeah, family's important. But man, think about that advice. Like if you're a manager or a leader and and like it's just so self-evident.
Yeah.
And we want everyone to bleed our company colors first. It just doesn't happen that way now. So think if you change that as a leader and you're like, wait a second, they're going to work harder for their own personal goals and family first.
Yeah.
Man, you can use that to motivate, because I think it's incumbent upon leadership in any role, sales or otherwise, that you need to know the personal goals of your people and show them how the company can help them achieve those goals. And so that was something, just as you can see, just really, really stuck with me from those days. And it's been something I've tried to implement and kind of give to our clients over the last years, because I think too often it's a problem in sales management, man. We don't give a shit about motivating people anymore.
Yeah.
Right. We want to hire people who are self-driven, and we use all the crap. They're supposed to be entrepreneurial and all this other stuff and all the stats in the world, man. If you're leading people, they think that their top level is at your eyes, and that it's 12 inches above that. You got to lift your people up. And so, yeah, Brad Randolph, awesome dude and great friend, and clearly you can tell how much that means to me. But it's just transcended about every area of my life, as long as I'm not being an idiot and kind of regressing into some selfishness myself.
Shout out, Brad. What a great story, man. And when I hear that, it resonates on two levels. I think that whether you're an individual contributor or you're a leader, you can take a valuable lesson from that. And as an individual contributor, a lot of times we put the company or we put the business in front of our families, right? Because we think that, well, I'm busting my ass, I'm doing all this stuff for my family,
Yeah.
right? So that ambition gets the best of us, and before we know it, we're separating ourselves from our family. We're losing our priorities, right? And so, you
Yeah.
know, I had a moment like that when I was, I don't know how many years ago. The years just keep stacking up, but years back, I had a moment like that when fortunately, thank God, Ken, thank God I received that lesson that my wife was trying to give to me. I was, it was probably 12, 13, 14, I don't know, some teen years ago, right? And sitting in the living room and kids are little and I'm on my laptop, I'm doing some work, and my wife says, what are you doing? Like, you're never here. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm here. I'm here.
Yeah.
No, you're not here. You're not. And I was
Yeah.
not happy at first when she told me. I wasn't really ready to receive that. But then I took some time. I'm like, oh, maybe she has a point, right? My ambition, my work for the business and the company was getting in the way of the relationships. I wasn't able to really create that separation. And then, as you said, the lesson for the leaders is that and this kind of ties into the book, guys. In the book, we talk a lot about knowing what matters most to our customers. And as a leader, your customer are the people that work for you, right? Like those people that you're privileged to lead. You got to know what matters most to them, because what matters most to them ain't your company more than likely. So you know what matters most to them. You know what you know about their family. You know about those sorts of things. Then you can help to motivate them. You can help them to be successful by tying in the things that matter most to them and aligning. Great lesson, Ken. All right. So shout out to Brad. And next in the Ken storytelling hour, Ken, it's time to tell a story, man. The book is about storytelling, and then it's about X's and O's and blocking and tackling. So now it is time for you to share a story. So if you and the story of Brad's story was a fantastic way to start, but I'd like you to share a story. And this story, it needs to be something that helped to formulate your philosophy. It helped to it's fundamental to how you do business to this day. Something you learned along the way. It could have been negative, it could have been positive, but whatever it was something that taught you something valuable. And now you're going to teach the audience. Share that story with us, Ken. What you got?
Yeah, it's funny how, it's one of the things I really love about our relationship is that we get together and, like, even just in this format, right? We're recording a podcast and we kind of get into it, right? It's
No,
like you get
always.
the emotional stuff going, and you're like, what in the world? I think about this stuff. Yeah, I think, we've talked about some of these ideas before, but I think for the listeners, it's real interesting. We're in a really driven society today, right? Everybody needs to be, you got to be number one, and if you're not number one, you're still going to lie about it and say you're number one, right? It's just that's the way it is. But the problem is, it leads to a lot of imposter syndrome. It leads to people being um, inability to be humble and learn. It
Yeah.
leads to a sense of arrogance. It leads to things that actually are counterproductive to helping you and your family, like we kind of talked about in the last point. So I have a good friend of mine, and he and I have been through, like, if it's, probably outside of you, Ronell, he's the guy that we talk the most. It's self-development. It's just honest, hard core conversations. So his name's Randy Stacy, and so he's was the number one seller for me when he and I met at Insperity back in 2011. After I'd filed bankruptcy and after I had to restart my life. And so he and I met during that time, and he was going through some rough times. Then he came to work for me back in probably 2016, and he was the number one seller in our organization by, not even close, like by a ton. And then helped introduce him to the company he's at right now, and he's the number one seller, carrying like 20% of their revenue on a $400 million company. Just crushing it when there's another 50 guys. And so clearly a smart guy and very, very driven. But one of the things Randy and I would talk about a lot, because change sucks. It's hard, right? Being intentional about changing who you are, what you are, your behaviors. 60%, regardless of what you think about fitness, 60% of America wouldn't be obese if change wasn't hard. Right? That's, nobody will say that it's, you can feel fine about the way you look, but nobody will tell you that it's actually healthier. Right? And so, maybe that's too hardcore. But one of the things that he and I talk about when we talk about changing behaviors is we have to change our own stuff. There's kind of two concepts. We talk about faith it until you make it. Right? You and I have talked about that. Instead of fake it till you make it, faith it until you make it. And within that, though, it's really, really important to figure out what to put your energy into. And so I have something called the 3-foot rule. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're in a place where you can stand up, kind of put your arms out to the side and pretend like there's strings coming down from your fingers. And then turn in a circle. That's your circle. And so one of the biggest concepts that he and I thought was that's representative of where we're willing to put our emotional energy. And so if it doesn't come inside that circle where I can actually touch and control the thing, where I can actually make a meaningful impact, I refuse to put any emotional energy into it. Everything else is just information. Because if I can't feel it, if I can't do anything about it, think about the last time you were pissed off about something you couldn't control. That wasted hours, if not weeks of your life. You thought about it every day and it dogged you. And so I think one of the most important things that we can figure out is that idea of how to control where our emotional energy is expended. And so for me, that circle rule is a personal philosophy. And I can tell you this, when I commit to it, I'm crushing life.
So what got you
that
there?
Circle has some dots. It doesn't work.
What got you to coming to that conclusion? Was there a moment in your life or something that, things weren't going in the direction you wanted to, or what was the catalyst to you coming to the conclusion of, hey, look, this is what I want to do. And, and this is a philosophy that I want to live my life by.
It was probably about 18 months after I got divorced, 18 months after I was separated. Regardless of how that situation went down or not, nobody did anything bad to each other. We didn't make each other better. But it was one of those things where what I found was, I was like, why am I unhappy about things? And then if you wrote a list about all the things that you wanted to change, and those things were all things you have no control over, man, that's a bad way to live life. If I have to wait for Ronell to change to my expectations, which he's unaware of, in order for me to be happy. And so I'd sat in kind of that emotional, where I'd been putting all the emotion into it. And look at society today, man. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. I don't care what side you lean on the SCOTUS. I don't care any of that. What I can tell you is this. Look at the elections. Brothers and sisters ain't talking to each other. Moms and kids are that's great. Have opinion, but treat it as information, and let's show a little bit of love, and let's understand what things we actually have control over. Get passionate about those. Stop wasting your time on other stuff. So for me, it was a very intentional moment of where am I going to put my time and energy that it'll make an impact for others and myself.
Man, I think that's such a powerful lesson, Ken. Thank you for sharing the story. And, one of the things I take from that, and I think that so many folks, especially people in the corporate sales world, get overwhelmed and too concerned about things that they can't really impact, right? Like stressing out about things that are beyond that 3 feet, right? Instead of really focusing on controlling what it is. And what I'm hearing from you is not only just controlling what you can control, but even limiting that, right? Bringing it in even to a more intimate level so that you can bring greater focus to the things that are going to help you to be successful. Great share, man. You're rapid fire. You know what? You're bringing the heat. No, you're bringing the RevHeat today. You like that?
I love where your head's at, baby.
Ken, all right, now it's time for a little blocking and tackling, man. And
Yeah.
this is where one of the things I really, love, when we get the opportunity to hang out and really talk strategy. You are so good at just like breaking things down, making them simple, making them practical, which I'm all about. That's what the book is about. So now it's time for a little X's and O's, blocking and tackling. If you could share either a tactic or some advice or some direction that sellers can take from this podcast, like as soon as they get off from this, as soon as they get done binging all the episodes, because I know you guys are hooked now, you're into it. As soon as you get done binging all the episodes, you write down what Ken is about to tell you, and you put action to it, and you start charting your success. Ken, what is that tactical, practical X's and O's direction you'd like to leave with the audience today?
Here's the good news. I'm going to give them some advice, Ronell, and if they execute on this advice, then they will see a 15% increase in their income over the next 12 months beyond what they would have done without it.
Ooh.
Like, it's just a no bullshit. Like, let's go do something right. So here's the thing. I'm going to tell you this. You're a sales leader, you're a salesperson. Here's the truth. You don't have a closing problem. You don't have a creating urgency problem. You don't have some back end pipeline problem. You have a value development problem. You have a discovery problem. So if you're talking about looking at the end of the pipeline and you're saying, man, why don't we close more? And why don't we get a better percentage? It's because you're not consultative selling at the front end. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you a format real quickly that is about how to run the perfect discovery call, because the perfect discovery call sets up everything else. Ask me where all the sales success came from in my ability to sell and lead sellers. It was because I'm the best guy in the room when it comes to discovery. Period. Because that's where you start to figure out the stuff, and you can trend that through the rest. So here's the deal. First, ask yourself, do I have a specific process that I follow in my discovery call meetings? I mean, like a framework, an outline of the steps you're going to cover. Because most people, it goes like this. Hey, I'll small talk until it sounds like Ronell doesn't want to small talk anymore.
There you go.
Then I'm going to ask Ronell why he's here. And then once Ronell tells me why he's here, I'm going to spend the next 18 minutes trying to tell him why we can solve that one problem he spoke about that he doesn't actually care about because he doesn't know me or trust me. That was the first thing that he actually said. Mm-hmm. So as you can see, that's not a winning solution for bigger deals more often. So here's the deal. We put something together called the perfect meeting, and it has 6 phases in it. And these are all important because they do great stuff to set up the rest of the sale. The difference between fantastic sellers and you average sellers is this. Fantastic sellers are trying to understand why the prospect's going to buy in the discovery call. Average sellers are trying to figure out how to get them to the next step. It's a huge distinction. So here's the deal. Here's the 6 steps. So 1, I hate it. I don't like rapport because, you know me, I don't look very talkative, right? So, but the rapport is step 1, 2 to 3 minutes. Next thing we have is called today's value. And that's where you're going to talk and say, okay, Ronell, why are you here? What are you going to align on the reason they're there, right? Why are you here? What do you want to learn, et cetera? Then you're going to do the agenda. Because ask yourself, I'm going to bet you right now that 50% of the sellers that are listening to this don't actually set an agenda every time, which is how you lose control of the call. So you have to set an agenda. Then we have the very aptly named middle. So that's where the actual conversation and action happens. We're going to return to value, which is the back end where we say, hey, Ronell, based upon what I heard today, did I get this right? Can you help me sort it in my brain? Because that's going to set up our prescription, and the prescription is how we prescribe the next step. But all of it leads to the ability to maintain control while presenting value and asking fantastic questions. So once again, I tell you, if you don't have a specific outline, you have to have a specific outline for discovery, and that outline has to start with the idea of why are they here and run to a prescription. And the last component of it is in your agenda can't be about a demo. Your agenda can't be about something innocuous. Your agenda has to be, hey, Ronell, so curious, what's important to you over the next 9 to 12 months? Because when you start talking about their problem, their technology, the thing they need today, where they're staring down at their desk, you haven't got their eyes to look up off the desk, and they're telling you the least valuable problem that they have to solve. So start with a longer time frame, use a specific outline, and make sure you prescribe a next step in your discovery calls. I promise you'll make more money in the next 12 months.
There we go. Simple, practical, executable. You know what I loved about your advice, Ken, is you started with numbers. You're like 15%. Guaranteed. I love it. Yep. Now, guys, if you follow Ken's direction and you don't get 15% increase, Ken will give you $1,000. That's what he's told me before. You just gotta, right? 10,000.
Come be a client, because I can tell you this. Here, ready? Come be a client. If you're a client, I'll give you that $1,000 because I know that you'll do it with me. Because we've taken sellers from 75,000 to 600,000. So the 15% is just a drop in the bucket if you do it right.
See, I knew that too. I knew you were being conservative. All right. So, Ken, if folks want to reach out to you, they want to do business with you, they just want to be your buddy, how should they reach out to you? Maybe they want to work out with you. Let's go back to that. No, let's say they want to get a workout in with you.
Yeah. And if you want to work out with me, that's cool too. I'm up in Suwanee, Georgia. So if you get here, if want to pay for me to fly, I'll do that too. Just kidding. So anyway, if you want to reach out, obviously first place is LinkedIn. I'm sure that all these will be in the show notes, but Ken Lundin, it's Lundin. So you'll see that. Get to me on LinkedIn, or then, come visit our website. It's got a ton of great stuff, and that's RevHeat.com, RevHeat.com. We've got a section on there that has a whole bunch of free webinars we've done. So there's 6 or 8 of those. And then on top of those recordings, we actually have a page that has about, 15 or 20 free downloads. Everything from what we talked about with the perfect meeting and the discovery call to how to what strategic initiatives should a sales leader prioritize. So we have a format for that, to just, hey, if you're a sales manager and you want to teach people how to cold call better, we have a cold calling matrix on there that you can use too. So it's a wide berth of things, but RevHeat.com, or hit me on LinkedIn. But hey, when you do, you got to tell me you heard me on Shut the Hell Up and Sell, because I need to be able to go back to Ronell and tell him what an impact this had for me. So I appreciate you.
Hey, again, Ken, it's always a blast. I always enjoy it. Folks, make sure you're reaching out and connecting. Get your copy of the book if you have not already. And yeah, when you reach out to Ken, say, listen, I heard you on Shut the Hell Up and Sell. And yeah, you did all right. Next time, I'm just kidding. Of course you killed it. Ken always kills it, man. We have a long history of speaking engagements, and you always bring the fire. And today, you brought the fire again. You brought the heat, the RevHeat. I'm going to keep saying that. That's going to be a thing now. All right. It. Hey, thank you all for your time. Thank you for listening to us today. Really appreciate you folks out there. Make sure you get your copy of the book, and never, ever forget. Shh. Say less, sell more. Peace out. Hey guys, it's Ronell, and I just wanted to thank you for listening to this episode of the Shut the Hell Up and Sell podcast. If you liked it, please rate us 5 stars on whichever podcasting platform you're listening to this on. And while you're at it, punch that subscribe button. That way you get notified every time we drop a brand new episode. Hey, I'd also appreciate it if you went to our website, shutthehellupandsell.com, and became a member. It's absolutely free, and you'll have the opportunity to listen to previous episodes of our podcast, check out some of our free courses, get a copy of the book, and we'll send you sales tips and motivational nuggets from time to time. Lastly, if you'd like to book me for either appearances or speaking engagements, just send an email to my team at team@shutthehellupandsell.com.